What's up, welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with my 2026 Oscar nominations predictions. Gonna go through all the major categories here based off the data that we have from the Guild nominations, the Golden Globes. Gonna make our best educated guess on all the major categories as voting is about to wrap up. We will get these nominations announced to us on January 22nd. The Oscars are not all the way until March 15th. Of course, when the nominations do get announced, we will react to that. When it's time to make official predictions, we will do that as well. But for now, we must predict who will get nominated, which performers, which movies. And we got a lot to get through here, so let's just jump right in. So I'm going to jump right into Best Picture here, just because talking about the movies in the mix for Best Picture kind of informs all the other categories. Doesn't really make sense to save it to the end. So we'll just jump right in here with Best Picture. There's a clear top tier and frankly a clear middle tier. I'm not sure how much is really up for grabs this year with Best Picture. So just looking at it, One Battle After Another, Sinners, Hamnet, Marty Supreme. Those four are lock of locks to be nominated. I think that's pretty clear. All four have a Golden Globe nomination, a SAG Ensemble nomination, a Producers Guild nomination, a Directors Guild Director nomination, and also a selection on the BAFTA long list. I'm recording this before the BAFTA nominations have actually been announced, so we're just going off the long list there. All four of those are, of course, I think, incredibly locked in. And, of course, One Battle and Hamnet split the two Globes wins. Of course, goes without saying that the Globes, not inherently the biggest predictor. On top of that, the Golden Globes cast a very wide net because they split a lot of categories up into drama and then separately musical or comedy. A lot of stuff gets in and gets a Golden Globe nomination. The voters on the Golden Globes are not Oscar voters almost exclusively, but it is effectively the first big award show of the season in terms of factoring into a campaign, getting movies in front of voters in another way. So it has some significance, even if it's not inherently a clear predictor. Either way, One Battle After Another, Sinners, Hamnet, and Marty Supreme, all clear Best Picture nominees. That'll be happening. The Secret Agent, the Brazilian film, also got a Golden Globe nomination. I think that's quite clearly in as well. Just the movie seems to have just a lot of broad support up and down the ballot. Notably, it did not make the BAFTA long list, although the BAFTA history with non-white and non-English movies is not very good, so that's not exactly surprising. The Secret Agent also was not nominated for the SAG Ensemble Award, the Screen Actors Guild Ensemble Award. It's now called the Actors Awards. I'm going to keep calling it SAG for shorthand. However, The Secret Agent missing out at SAG is not actually that big of a deal, in my opinion, because if you look at the recent data with SAG has nominated exactly one non-English film in the last 5 years, and that film happened to be Emilia Perez last year of all movies. So The Secret Agent was not nominated by SAG this year, nor was Sentimental Value, or It Was Just an Accident, No Other Choice, any of the big, international films this year, all blanked by SAG. So SAG is just not inherently that representative anymore, as the Film Academy has gotten much more international over the last half decade or so. The Screen Actors Guild is still a lot more Western, a lot more American. So that is what it is. Secret Agent I have in making number 5. I also have Sentimental Value in for number 6. Sentimental Value nominate the Globes, nominate the Producers Guild Award, getting a BAFTA long list nomination as well. I have Netflix's Frankenstein from Guillermo del Toro in, Globe, BAFTA, SAG, PGA, DGA, across the board. So that brings us to 7. I'd be pretty shocked if any of those 7 did not get into Best Picture. This is where it gets interesting from here in terms of how you fill out the rest of Best Picture. We are back to a time where it'll be exactly 10 nominations, not floating in between like 8 and 10. So there's 3 more to pick here. And I think the contenders we have here are Korea's No Other Choice from Park Chan-wook, Train Dreams from Netflix, Begonia from Yorgos Lanthimos, It Was Just an Accident from Jafar Panahi, and I think that's really it. Among those, No Other Choice did get a Golden Globe nomination. Train Dreams did get a Producers Guild Award nomination. Begonia had a lot of support. Globe nom, BAFTA long list selection, Producers Guild Award nomination. It Was Just an Accident, also getting a Globe nom. Other movies that had Globe noms, again given the wide net, include Nouvelle Vague and Blue Moon, both from Richard Linklater. F1 and Weapons both had Producers Guild Award nominations. I'm not expecting any of those 4 to get through. So you have to pick 3 out of Train Dreams, Begonia, It Was Just an Accident, and No Other Choice. And it's hard. I think now that we've kind of let the tea leaves settle, It Was Just an Accident feels a bit weaker and less certain now than it might have been a few weeks ago. I'm curious if it's still pulling ahead. Now, when we think about this overall field, this is very international, right? Secret Agent, Sentimental Value, No Other Choice, It Was Just an Accident. Those big 4 international movies, all acquired by Neon at Cannes this year. If all 4 of them were nominated, that'd be pretty wild, right? To have the 4 foreign films all in the same year there at Best Picture. I think it's probably only gonna end up being 3. And with Secret Agent and Sentimental Value already in, I'm kind of leaning into It Was Just an Accident and out of No Other Choice, which pains me to say because No Other Choice was my number 3 movie of the year. If it was up to me, it would absolutely be in here. But the support, it's hard to say because the support isn't really there in an overwhelming fashion for either one. So it's really hard for me to make the call. Train Dreams also clearly running behind Frankenstein in terms of the Netflix field here. That being said, it has clearly pulled ahead of the other Netflix films this year. House of Dynamite from Catherine Bigelow, Jay Kelly from George Clooney, Wake Up Dead Man, Knives Out 3 from Rian Johnson, Nouvelle Vague from Linklater. None of those are going through. It's really just going to be Frankenstein and then probably also Train Dreams. So I'm going to put Train Dreams in. I'm going to put Begonia in, which has seemed to really surge. Of course, Yorgos Lanthimos has a really successful history at the Oscars. Also international filmmaker, even if it's an English film. So I think that's in his favor. And then I'm going to put It Was Just an Accident in at 10, but I would not be shocked if that was No Other Choice. But that's where I'm leaning. My prediction for the 10 Best Picture nominees at the Oscars this year are One Battle After Another, Sinners, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, The Secret Agent, Frankenstein, Train Dreams, Begonia, Sentimental Value, and It Was Just an Accident. Let me know which of those movies you're pulling for and who you'd like to see nominated. Now, jumping over to animated feature, I also think this is one of the more interesting years for animated, which is not always the case by any means. Now, at the top, we clearly have K-pop Demon Hunters from Netflix and Zootopia 2 from Disney. In terms of predictors for animation, we have the PGA noms, the Golden Globe win, the BAFTA long list, as well as the Annie Awards. K-pop Demon Hunters and Zootopia 2 both got PGA and Golden Globe nominations, with K-pop Demon Hunters winning the Golden Globe. They also both got Annie Award nominations. Now, K-pop Demon Hunters surprisingly blanked the BAFTA long list. I'm not sure if that was an eligibility reason in terms of theatrical release. I'm not sure, but it was not nominated. The rest of the Golden Globe field was Elio from Pixar, the second Demon Slayer movie, Little Amelie, or the character of Rain, the small film out of France, and Arco, the other film out of France that is about to get a release from Neon in a few weeks' time here in the States. I kind of think that's the field, in terms of what's going to get selected here. Other things in the mix, you have The Bad Guys 2 from DreamWorks, which did get a PGA nomination, did make the BAFTA long list. We do have Scarlet from Mamoru Hosoda, the anime film, which did get an Annie Award nomination in the independent category alongside Arco. I think a lot of people would kind of pull for the category, not just defaulting to a lot of the big hitters, right? Like this was a weak year for Pixar with Elio, both commercially and critically, right? We don't need necessarily recognize Elio in this category. It wasn't that remarkable, right? So I would pull for something like Scarlet, which is a movie I did not completely love either, but just has a lot more ambition to it. I think the decision might end up being between Elio and Demon Slayer in terms of the commercial players here, because it does feel like Little Amelie and Arco are both going to get in, kind of following the footsteps of like Flow, which was the surprise winner last year. Small animated films, some films that maybe lean more towards a broader audience, not just strictly for children. That seems to be having a lot of support at the Oscars this year. Also, the fact that Arco and Little Amelie are not English American films, I think helps in terms of the voting there. So I'm going to go with K-pop Demon Hunters, Zootopia 2, Demon Slayer, Little Amelie, and Arco, and have Elio missing out and having the Bad Guys 2 missing out as well. But I'm not sure. That was kind of a crapshoot to me. And before we get to all the acting nominations, just want to do international feature film real quick here. I think this one's honestly incredibly chalk and incredibly easy to talk about right now. Because, of course, we have the 4 films we talked about in the mix for Best Picture. The Secret Agent from Brazil, Sentimental Value from Norway. It Was Just an Accident, which is technically from France, but of course is an Iranian film. No Other Choice from South Korea. Those 4 films, I think are definitely in. They were all Golden Globe nominated. They all made the BAFTA long list for this category. And the fifth film is probably almost assuredly Surat from Spain, which is not released here in the States yet, but also had a Globe nomination and also had a surprising 5 appearances on the Oscars shortlist for all the down ballot categories. And that was more appearances than it was just an accident and no other choice. Quite surprising. So I kind of feel like that's our 5, right? You have the 4 films that Neon acquired, and then Surat. And I think the only other film that's really contending to take one of these 5 spots would be The Voice of Hind Rajab from Tunisia, which did win the Grand Jury Prize at Venice, this, the runner-up prize there, and did also make the BAFTA long list, and also made the Globe nomination because they nominated 6 movies. That one's in the mix, but I just don't see it really pulling through. It'd be quite the upset if like No Other Choice missed out on this category. I just can't see that happening given the fame that a lot of the filmmakers have that are in this category, right? The Secret Agent from Kleiber Mendofilio. It Was Just an Accident from Jafar Panahi. No Other Choice from Park Chan-wook. Sentimental Value from Joachim Trier. Like those are big time international filmmakers. Like I have a hard time seeing any of them get blanked here, And that's apologies to I think the rest of the field too, which has some notable movies. I really like Left-Handed Girl on Netflix from Taiwan. I'm very eager to see the Japanese selection that made the shortlist, Kokugo, which has not been released yet. But I think that's where we're at. Oh, sorry. And before we do the actors again, director. We got to talk about Best Director, of course. I think this one is also a pretty tight field once again. There's really only one spot that feels truly up for grabs. So we definitely have a big 3 in this category. Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another, Chloe Zhao for Hamnet, Ryan Coogler for Sinners. All 3 of them, Globe, Directors Guild, BAFTA long list selections, PTA, won the Globe. All 3 of them have basically been nominated at every turn. The Globes, Directors Guild, BAFTA long list, PTA winning at the Globes. Then from there we have Guillermo del Toro, who was nominated for the Golden Globe and the Directors Guild, but missed the BAFTA long list. And of course, that's del Toro for Frankenstein. So del Toro maybe not quite as strong as we might have expected. That being said, he has been a Oscar darling, of course, an international filmmaker in his own right, despite working in the States a ton. He still feels pretty safe, but not bulletproof this year. And then that 5th spot, I think a lot of people were trying to peg Jafar Panahi in here. I'm curious if the political situation regarding him and his relationship with the Iranian government and the current events in Iran at the moment, I wonder if that's going to help or hurt his case. I mean, the movie's certainly worthy. I'd be curious about that. And he's probably directly competing with Joachim Trier for Sentimental Value. On the other hand, Josh Safdie, director of Marty Supreme, didn't get nominated at the Globes, but did get a Director's Guild nomination and also make the BAFTA long list. Marty Supreme has been coming on, so would it be a shock if he got that 5th spot? Not necessarily, but I'm probably going to pick against it, given the international composition of the Film Academy here. And other people I just don't really think are in the mix: Park Chan-wook for No Other Choice, Kleber Mendofilio for The Secret Agent, and Yorgos Lanthimos, who also made the BAFTA long list. I don't really think any of them are necessarily in the mix. I guess Mendofilio maybe, if The Secret Agent really came on. Of course, Brazil got a lot accomplished last year with I'm Still Here breaking into Best Picture, and Fernando Torres getting a Best Actress nomination. I guess it wouldn't be completely shocking, but to have him kind of leapfrog a lot of other international filmmakers in the process, I'm not sure. I'm going to pick against it. So I'll select PTA, Zhao, Del Toro, Coogler, and Trier as my 5 picks. And I'll have Panahi slipping out in the end because it was just an accident, perhaps not as strong as we might have expected. That's what I'm going to go with there. Moving on to the actors. So again, we're talking about a lot of the same movies here. Best Actor, I think you have a really tight 4 for sure. Timothée Chalamet for Marty Supreme, Leonardo DiCaprio for One Battle After Another, Wagner Moura for The Secret Agent, Michael B. Jordan for Sinners. I think they're all pretty much in. Moura did miss out on SAG and the BAFTA long list. Again, we mentioned those caveats already. Everyone else got through there. Of course, Timmy and Moura won the 2 Globes. The 5th spot has been pegged a lot as Ethan Hawke, who got a SAG, BAFTA long list, Globe nomination for Blue Moon, the Richard Linklater movie. But I do feel like it's Jesse Plemons' season. I think Plemons is coming on with Begonia, which has been getting stronger and stronger. Plemons also had nominations for SAG, BAFTA, and Globe. And I think the Yorgos love's going to carry over there. Linklater, his films have never been strong performers at the Oscars. I mean, it would be cool to see Ethan Hawke get through there, but I feel like it's Plemons. And, Joel Edgerton has certainly been in the mix a lot for Train Dreams. He did miss out on SAG, though, which I think is pretty notable, despite a Globe and BAFTA spot given to him. So I'm gonna have Train Dreams out and Edgerton out, I should say, and have Plemons take that 5th spot there. Other people that aren't really in the mix are people who got, Golden Globe recognized: Lee Byung-hun for No Other Choice, George Clooney for Jay Kelly, Jeremy Allen White for Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, Dwayne Johnson for The Smashing Machine. I don't think any of that's happening. So that's Best Actor for me. Best Actress, again, also seems pretty calcified at the top. Jessie Buckley for Hamnet, Rose Byrne for If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, Chase Infinity for One Battle After Another, Emma Stone for Begonia, and Renata Renzva for Sentimental Value. That's probably our 5. I think if you're trying to take one of those away, you're trying to take away Emma Stone for Begonia, but Emma Stone is obviously a Academy favorite, right? 2-time Best Actress winner, and in a Yorgos movie. Yorgos is popular. Like, I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to find someone to take that spot away. I kind of think that's where we're at. Renzva did miss out on the SAG nomination. In her place was Kate Hudson for Song Sung Blue, which I don't think is going to happen. All the rest of those did get Globe recognized. Someone who I was really pulling for in this category would be Amanda Seyfried for The Testament of Anne Lee, but she missed out on the BAFTA long list and the SAG nomination, so I think that one's pretty DOA. Searchlight Pictures, in the end, not contending at the Oscars this year, one of the first times in the last 10 years. Rental Family, Is This Thing On, The Testament of Anne Lee, those were their big movies this year, and just none of them are happening at the Oscars this year. Pretty surprising to have Searchlight just not be in the mix right now. The other people that got Globe recognition for Best Actress: Tessa Thompson for Hedda, Julia Roberts for After the Hunt, LOL, Eva Victor for Sorry Baby, Jennifer Lawrence for Die My Love, and Cynthia Erivo for Wicked. Lawrence and Erivo also made the BAFTA long list, but I just don't see that happening. Cynthia Erivo, of course, was recognized for Wicked 1. Just does not seem to be happening at all for Wicked Part 2, which I, of course, did not mention at all in the Best Picture mix, just like I didn't mention Avatar Fire and Ash, Avatar 3 in the Best Picture mix. Of course, those previous movies both got recognized. Nonetheless, that's where we're at, I feel like. Supporting Actor, I think this one also feels pretty calcified right now, and I think any of these categories, finding some surprises will be interesting. Like, can it happen? I think Supporting Actress, which we'll get to, might have some surprise, but Supporting Actor, you have Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value and Benicio del Toro for One Battle After Another. Those are the clear contenders here, but Jacob Elordi from Frankenstein is also pretty obviously in the mix, and Paul Mescal is here with Hamnet and a strong film. Sean Penn also here for One Battle After Another. I feel like that's your 5. Like, who else is really contending here? You have Adam Sandler for Jay Kelly, who got recognized by the Globes, made the BAFTA long list, missed out on SAG. You do have Miles Caton from Sinners, who's been winning some, first time breakthrough performance type awards as a young actor. He got a SAG nomination in the place of Stellan Skarsgård. Again, we're pointing out the foreign bias with SAG right now. I just don't really see it, Delroy Lindo made the BAFTA long list for Sinners, but hasn't really done much elsewhere. I feel like Skarsgård, Benicio, Elordi, Mescal, and Penn, it's kind of been that 5 for a while now. I just have a hard time seeing anything happening to break that up. And then Supporting Actress, we have Tiana Taylor for One Battle After Another, Ariana Grande for Wicked, for Good, Inga Ipsdottir-Lillius from Sentimental Value, Elle Fanning for Sentimental Value, Amy Madigan for Weapons. Is that our 5? That's kind of been the chalk 5 for a while. But of course, if we look at SAG, they blanked Elle Fanning and Inga Ipsdottir-Lillius from Sentimental Value, again, foreign movie. They didn't recognize it. In their place, they selected Odessa A'zion for Marty Supreme, who also made the BAFTA long list, and Wumi Masaku from Sinners, who also made the BAFTA long list and got a Critics' Choice nomination as well, for what it's worth. I think those are the people that have the chance to break through. Emily Blunt got a Globe nomination, but hasn't really been recognized elsewhere for The Smashing Machine. Don't see that happening. So I think for me, the question is, does Sentimental Value get both picks, Elle Fanning and Inga Ipsdottir-Lillius? I think Elle Fanning's the weaker contender there, and I think I'm going to pick one. It's hard, right? Odessa A'zion, I'm a big fan of her. She had a breakthrough this year between Marty and I Love LA on HBO. I think Wunmi Masaku is the better pick, though, if you're going to sub someone out. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have Wunmi Masaku in, Elle Fanning out, alongside Amy Madigan, Inga Ipsdottir-Lillius, Ariana Grande, and Tiana Taylor. I guess it's possible that Ariana Grande doesn't make it instead, but she's been like pretty rock solid in terms of recognition thus far. SAG nom, Golden Globe nom, Critics' Choice nom, BAFTA longlist spot. It'd be kind of shocking at this point if she didn't get through. And I think if you're going to nominate one performer from Wicked, you would pick Ari. So that's the acting. And then, just looking at the screenplays real quick, it makes really no sense to look at much of the predicting data here because a lot of the categories condense into just one screenplay category and don't differentiate between original and adapted like the Oscars do. Furthermore, the Writers Guild Awards, they haven't even announced their noms yet, and they have such strict eligibility rules that numerous films are not eligible for the WGA, such as Sentimental Value, Just an Accident, and The Secret Agent. That being said, I think original screenplay, you have a pretty clear top cohort here, but there'll definitely, I think, be some surprise in both screenplay categories in terms of what else gets through. And screenplay historically has always been a category where they might think a little bit more outside the box and recognize some other movies, which is always nice to see. I think original screenplay, though, you're definitely going to see Sinners, Sentimental Value, and Marty Supreme, and probably also It Was Just an Accident and The Secret Agent. I think if there's going to be any kind of surprise there, it might be Zach Cregger's Weapons. I'd have a hard time picking Jay Kelly here. I do think Eva Victor's Sorry Baby, you could obviously make a great case for it. I don't know if I'm going to pick it, though. I want to pick Weapons here, but I have a hard time knocking one of these movies out. Again, as I said before, if It Was Just an Accident ends up having a much weaker showing, maybe that drops out in place of Weapons, but I'm not going to pick it there. On the other side, with adapted screenplay, pretty easy picks at the top here with One Battle After Another, Hamnet, and Train Dreams. I'm also going to put Begonia here as well. And now, Frankenstein's in the mix for this category. I would not celebrate that film's screenplay, though. I think it's clear that Frankenstein's going to get a lot of nominations and get a lot of love. It seems to get a lot of craft attention. I think screenplay, though, is one of the weaker categories, relatively speaking, for that film. If it was up to me, I would definitely put No Other Choice there instead. I don't think Wake Up Dead Man has the juice to be here, though. Of course, Rian Johnson would be worthy in that category, but I think I'm going to pick No Other Choice and have Frankenstein out, but picking against Frankenstein feels kind of stupid, but that's what I'm going to do. So that's where I'm at with all the major categories, right? I mean, best visual effects, Avatar will be there, F1 will be there. Wicked probably will be there, even though I don't know if it has the best effects. I'll circle back and I'll react to a lot more of the trends when we have the full nominations for the full field there. But let me know, what movies are you pulling for? What actors are you rooting for? How are you seeing things with the Oscar nominations as we lead up to their announcement on the 22nd? What do you want to see? Where are you at with it? And make sure you come back when the nominations are out and come back furthermore when it's time to do those predictions. And if you like movies, come back for my reviews. Basically, every movie I just talked about, I did a review of when that came out. So if you like timely discussion of most important movies of the year, stick around and I'll see you next time.